Flying is roughly 95 times safer than driving. You are more likely to be injured on the way to the airport than on the plane itself. And yet millions of people grip their armrests at 35,000 feet, while cheerfully ignoring the genuinely dangerous thing they did to get there. This is not irrationality. It is your brain doing exactly what it was built to do. The problem is that what it was built to do and what actually keeps you safe in the modern world are two very different things. How your brain calculates risk. Your brain does not assess risk the way an actuary does, by calculating probability and magnitude and arriving at a rational estimate of expected harm. It assesses risk through emotion, and specifically through a cluster of mental shortcuts that were useful in a world that no longer exists. The most important of these is the availability heuristic, identified by psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. The availability heuristic works like this. Your brain estimates how likely something is by how easily an example comes to mind. If you can quickly imagine it happening, your brain treats it as common. If you struggle to picture it, your brain treats it as rare. Plane crashes are vivid, dramatic, and extensively covered by media. They generate images, wreckage, headlines, footage that lodge in memory with unusual force. Your brain retrieves those images effortlessly, interprets that ease of retrieval as a signal of frequency, and concludes that flying is dangerous. Car accidents kill approximately 1.35 million people worldwide every year. They happen on every road, every day, and almost none of them make national news. Your brain cannot easily retrieve a striking mental image of a fatal car journey. So it does not flag driving as particularly dangerous, despite the statistics being dramatically worse. You are not afraid of the right things. You are afraid of the memorable things. Dread risk and the illusion of control. There is a second factor that amplifies this distortion, what psychologist Paul Slovic calls dread risk. Dread risk describes our tendency to fear outcomes that feel uncontrollable, catastrophic, and outside our agency, regardless of their actual probability. A plane crash feels like something that happens to you, suddenly and completely, with no possibility of intervention. A car accident feels like something you might be able to avoid through skill, attention, or reaction, even though you almost certainly cannot. This illusion of control, the feeling that your hands on the wheel give you meaningful influence over outcome, systematically reduces our fear of risks we think we can manage, and amplifies our fear of risks where we feel passive. In reality, most car accidents are caused by factors the driver did not anticipate and could not have avoided. The control is largely illusory. But the brain doesn't know that. It just knows that you're the one holding the wheel. Loss aversion and why we take the wrong risks. Kahneman and Tversky's research on risk perception uncovered something that goes beyond fear of flying. It explains a much broader pattern in human decision-making. They found that losses feel roughly twice as painful as equivalent gains feel pleasurable. Losing £100 produces approximately twice the emotional impact of gaining £100. This asymmetry, which they called loss aversion, means that our decisions are not driven by a neutral calculation of potential outcomes. They are systematically skewed toward avoiding loss, even when taking a risk would produce a clearly better expected result. The practical consequences are significant. Loss aversion is why people hold failing investments long after they should have sold, because selling crystallizes the loss, whereas holding preserves the possibility, however unlikely, of recovery. It is why people stay in jobs that are making them miserable rather than risk the uncertainty of leaving. Why they avoid difficult conversations, decline opportunities with uncertain outcomes, and remain in situations that are bad but known. Because the unknown feels more threatening than the certain but familiar. The comfortable situation isn't always safe. It just feels safe. And to your brain, feeling safe and being safe are the same thing. The risks we systematically underestimate. The flip side of dread risk is something researchers call mundane risk. The slow, ordinary, statistical harms that feel undramatic and therefore don't trigger the brain's threat response. Sedentary lifestyle, chronic stress, poor sleep, financial decisions deferred, difficult conversations avoided. These accumulate quietly, without images or headlines, without the visceral jolt that activates our risk awareness. And so we manage them with the same urgency we manage the checked items on a list. They stay there, unaddressed, because nothing about them feels urgent enough. Meanwhile, the same people worrying about rare, dramatic outcomes are systematically underinvesting in the ordinary habits that determine most of what happens to them. 1. Practical reframe. The most useful shift is deceptively simple. When you feel afraid of something or resistant to a risk, ask not "how does this feel?" but "what do the numbers actually say?" Fear is information, but it is information about what your brain finds vivid and uncontrollable, not necessarily about what is likely. Separating the emotional signal from the statistical reality is a skill, and like most skills, it improves with practice. The question to apply to every significant decision is, am I avoiding this because the risk is genuinely high, or because the risk is vivid? The two feel identical from the inside. They almost never produce the same answer. Your brain is not broken when it misreads risk. It is running software that kept your ancestors alive in an environment where vivid, dramatic, fast-moving threats were the ones that mattered. The slow, statistical, diffuse threats of modern life are genuinely new. Your brain has not caught up, which means the most dangerous thing you can do is trust your gut entirely, and the most useful thing is to know exactly when not to. Subscribe to keep exploring this. Next time, we're looking at why sleep deprivation does far more damage than most people realize, and why the brain is the last thing to notice when it's running on empty. See you then.